We learned yesterday that according to Rashi, going based on the Midrash, the opening statement in Veira is a rebuke to Moshe Rabbeinu. It uses the appellation Elokim and the term Vayedaber, which is much more formal, because Moshe had spoken out of turn by asking the question, Lama Haris, Lama said, Lama Zeshlach Toni, and Hashem says, and the Hashem, I'm good to my word, and what you don't understand is because you don't understand. According to the Orach Chaim HaKodesh, he explained what you see as Midas Adin, the attribute of justice, is just to the contrary. Ani Hashem, this is Rachmim, because as we had mentioned, we were supposed to be there 400 years, and because of the intensification of the bondage was 210 years. Therefore, Ani Hashem, this what you see now is really Rachmim. This is not the attribute of Midin, of justice. Gimel, the Eiro El Avram El Yitzchak El Yaakov. I appeared to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, the Kel Shakai, with the appellation of Kel Shakai. Kel is powerful. Shakai means Shakochi Dai. I have the ability to do everything, and I have an ability to do everything on a precise level to rein in. Ushmi Hashem lo nadati lohem. And my name, the appellation of Yudke Vovke, which has relevance to the infinite, although they understood the concept, but to understand the inner workings of that, I did not make that known to them. Meaning Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem allowed him to understand some aspects of Yudke Vovke, because Moshe Rabbeinu had to understand the inner workings at that very advanced level to bring about the 10 plagues, the Esamakos, which everything was Mida Keneged Mida, was measure for measure, as we will discuss later, what the Egyptians had done to us during this period of time of slavery, of bondage. Let's see Rashi. Ve'ero el ha'ovos, b'kel shakai, hiftachtim harvi haftochos, u'kulon amarti lem ani kel shakai. I made them many promises, and it was within the context of Kel Shakai. Ushmi Hashem lo nadati lem, lo dati enksiv, el lo nodati. What does that mean? Lo nodati, lo nikarti lem b'mida amita sheli. I never allowed them to recognize me with the attribute of truth of mine. She'elen nikro shmi Hashem. And that's why I'm called Hashem Yudke Vavke. Neman Amish Dvorai. That I am faithful to verify and to actualize my words. I promised them, but they never saw it actually coming to fruition, as it will say in a moment. Gamai Kimosi is Brisi. Gabshe Nesi Lehem Bekel Shakai. When I appeared to them within the context of this appellation, Hitzavti Adbarti Brisi Beni Uveneim, I established my covenant between myself and them, Losis Lem as Eretz Canaan, to give them the land of Canaan. Lavram Parshas Milo Nemar Ani Akel Shakai, V'nosatcho Zarcho Achrecho Eretz Mugurecho. I'll give you and your progeny after you the land of your sojournings, the Yitzchok. And I will uphold the oath which I had sworn to Avram. I've committed myself, I promised them, but it never actually was actualized. The Gam ani shamati es nakas bnei Yisrael asher Mitzrayim avida bosam. In addition, I heard the outcries of Bnei Yisrael, who the Egyptians were enslaving, Veskas Brisi, and I remembered that bris. That bris I remembered. Gamani. Since because of that, those covenants with the patriarchs, now I must actually fulfill them. Lefichoch shamati is nakas bnei Yisrael. Over here, the Balaturim on the pasuk Dalit Loses Lemes Eretz Canaan. He says the word Loses, that the first base of Mikdash stood how many years? 410 years. The second base of Mikdash stood 420 years. The gematria, the numerical value of Loses Lemes Eretz Canaan, the word Loses numerically is Tov Yud Tov Chof. 410, 420, right? Lamed is 30, and you have two Tufs, 400 and 400. So that is the equivalent of 830, which is the period of the first and second Beis Hamikdash. So Remez l'shnei Mikdashim shamdu Tov Yud Tov Chav Shanim. So it's interesting. Eretz Canaan is what? Is known as Eretz HaKadosha, the Holy Land. As we've mentioned many times, the only location which has no archangel in existence is Eretz Yisrael. Every other location in the world which was distributed among the 70 root nations is overseen by the archangel representing that nation. Eretz Yisrael is Eretz HaKadosha. So we're there. But how do we have a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu? You know, you have Kedusha, Lahavdil. The person has the Hope Diamond or whatever is in a vault and it's locked. You can tell me whatever's in that vault is there, and it can be verified it's there, but because it's locked and it's not approachable, you have no relevance to it. What gives the person relevance to that? If he has access to what? To the combination, he could go into that vault. What gives us access to the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael, which is the basis for the Kedusha is HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself, because that's his location. It's Loses. Loses is Eretz, Lohebes Eretz Canaan. What's the Loses? It was accessed through Tov Yud, Tov Chof. 410 years, the first bias, Beis HaMikdash, and the second Beis HaMikdash. This is Vasili Mishkan Shechanti Besocham. This is the ultimate location, which the Shechina doesn't leave from that location. That's the Loses. How did he fulfill his promise of giving us the land? What was the value of the land? It's Loses. That's the location we can have that special, intimate relationship through the Beis HaMikdash. That was the medium through which we had the relation with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's Loses Lohem. It's interesting, we had said that the Avos HaKadoshim, it's explicit in the Midrash, Heinein Merkava. They themselves were the location of the Shechina. Wherever they were, that's where the Shechina was. Each of the Avos HaKadoshim, each of the holy patriarchs, Av Mitzvah and Yaakov, where they were, that's where the Shechina was. Each one was the equivalent of the Holy of Holies. That's what they were. Avram was the Holy of Holies, Yitzchak was the Holy of, but they were individuals. To give you the land that Klal Yisrael Hashem should be accessible to every one of them. How did that come about? That's Loses. That's through the Beis HaMikdash, the Beis Rishon, Beis Sheni, which is 410, 430, 20. That's how it was accessed to us. The Gamandi Shemati, we said, L'chein emor, L'vnei Yisrael. Ani Hashem. Therefore, tell the Bnei Yisrael, Ani Hashem. And because Ani Hashem, so Rashi says, what's Ani Hashem? Neman b'avtachosi. I'm faithful to carry out, to actualize my promise. Ani Hashem. Meaning, the way the Or Chaim HaKadosh learns, until now, how did we understand it? It was Elokim. Now they will understand that Elokim is Ani Hashem, is the ultimate Midas HaRachmim. Tell the Bnei Yisrael, Ani Hashem. I am Yud Kei Vavke. What they saw as Elokim, Ani Hashem. These are the four expressions of Geula, of redemption. Ani Hashem, and how would that Ani Hashem express itself? I will take you out from under the sufferings of Egypt. I will save you, from their work. And I will redeem you with that outstretched arm, and with great judgment. And I will take you for me as a people. And I will be your God. And then you will know that I am Hashem Elokeich, who took you out from under the sufferings of Egypt. These are the four Dal L'Shani Geula. This is why at the Seder we drink the 4 cups of wine to correspond to each of the expressions of the Geula, of the redemption. There's a famous story, number of stories. There's a story in the Gemara in Shabbos that Shmuel was a doctor. In the Gemara, Shmuel, the Amora, who was a colleague of Rav, was a doctor. Rav was a student of Rabbi Yehuda Nossi. Rav was greater than Shmuel. Whenever Rav was originally from Eretz Yisrael, Shmuel was a Babylonian. Rav was so great that before Rav came to Bavel, the level of Torah was not at that special level. And once Rav came to Bavel, he brought Torah to a level that there was no difference between Bavel and Eretz Yisrael. That was how great Rav was. When Rav came, he came by boat, of course, and he had a very serious intestinal issue. And somehow Shmuel, and when he did his bodily functions, they took the feces and they threw it into the ocean, into the water, and that feces floated on the water into the harbor in Bavel. And Shmuel was down by the ocean, and he sees this film floating on the water, and he recognizes that it's a serious intestinal infection. And he calls his Gabbai, and he says, I heard there's a great rabbi coming from Eretz Yisrael. His name's Rav. If he's as great as they say, I will heal him, because I see he has a serious intestinal infection. And if not, I'm not going to put myself out to that degree. It's Gemara. So he sends his his Talmud, to meet Rav at the boat, at the harbor. Rav comes off the boat, and this person, his name is Geniva, starts asking Rav questions, halakha questions. And at first, Rav thought he was asking questions he truly didn't know, and he was asking the questions to understand whatever he's asking. But then he realizes that this person is actually giving him an examination. He's testing his knowledge, which got him a little peeved, Rav. So finally, he's proven himself to be that exceptional Torah scholar, this Torah sage. So Geniva was told to invite him to Shmuel's house. He comes to Shmuel's house. Shmuel hosts him, gives him serves a certain course. Then he gives him a certain type of beer to drink. Beer. He drinks the beer, and all of a sudden, his stomach is churning to the degree he thinks he's going to burst. He's experiencing pain, not to believe what kind of pain. So he says to Rav, where's the location where I can relieve myself to do my bodily functions? Rav doesn't pay attention to him. Shmuel doesn't pay attention to him. And he's agonizing, he's in agony, he's writhing in pain, not to be believed. To the point, Rav cursed him and said, you should never merit to have sons. That was the degree of pain he had. It was uncontainable pain. And finally, at a certain point, he showed him exactly where he could relieve himself. And when he relieved himself, he emptied his bowel and everything, and he felt better. Why did he do it? Because the only way he could be healed from this parasite, from this intestinal infection, it had to churn within his bowel, with his intestines, and only then could they be cleansed to such a degree that the parasite will be actually flushed out of his system. He had experienced that pain. And only then was he healed. He thought that this man who he just first met was just putting him through the ringer over here, just to pain him. And therefore he cursed him. Because he did what he did, that he cursed him, he should never have sons. And Rav realized he made a mistake. But once he cursed him, Shmuel never had sons. Although Rav was greater than Shmuel, whenever they would go together, Rav would insist that Shmuel should go through the door first. He accorded him that respect. Because he made this mistake and he cursed him. And due to that curse, he never merited to have sons. He let Shmuel he accorded him that special respect, special honor, that he should go first and Rav go second. So initially, what did Shmuel think? The man's torturing me. He only realized that torture was the greatest gift of mercy, because that was the basis for his healing, to be able to deal with this parasite issue, this intestinal issue. Hashem withdraws the straw subsidy. The Shotrim are being beaten because they're not bringing in the quotas. And all of a sudden, it's Ani Hashem, Lochein Emor Lohem, the four Lashoni Geula. They had to experience that up to that point. So the way they processed it, this is Elokim. This is the ultimate Midas Adin. But then they realized, Ani Hashem, this is Rachmim. This shortened the extent of the bondage. Instead of 400 years, it's 210 years. And therefore tell them now, because what they experienced, if there's a very short period of time, which they thought was the end, they're going to be destroyed through this. This is the basis for the Geula. This is the launching pad. And now it begins, and this is the 10 months of the 10 plagues, which ultimately led to the Geula, to the redemption. And every Thursday night, literally the Mir in those days didn't have many students. But Thursday night, they would come from all these shivas, and the Beis Medrash in the Mir Yeshiva in Yerushalayim was packed. In those days, they only had one Beis Medrash. Today, they have 5,000 students. In those years, they had a few hundred students, maybe less. And all of a sudden, he came down with throat cancer. Rav Chaim Shmulevitz. And the doctor said to him, the only way that you could survive this, we have to cut out your larynx. And you're not going to be able to speak whatsoever. So he understood that means his career of disseminating Torah. Every day he said Shurim and Gemara, other things, spoken learning with the students. And he said this very special shir. It's all coming to an end. So Rebbe Eli Lapyan was alive at the time. Rebbe Eli Lapyan, Zechet Tzaddik Levrocha, was up in Kfar Hasidim. Rebbe Eli Lapyan was the last living student of the Alter of Kelm, Reb Simcha Zissel Ziv. And Rebbe Eli Lapyan had Gilui Eliyahu when he was 27 years old. Eliyahu Navi came to him when he was 27 already. Very holy man. And he met with Rebbe Eli Lapyan. He was younger than he was. He was in his early 70s. Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, Rebbe Eli Lapyan was already 90 years old. And he said to him, I need a bracha from you. I need a bracha. And the bracha is that I should be healed from the cancer, and they shouldn't have to cut out my larynx, because if they do that, my period of dissemination of Torah is coming to an end. I'll not be able to teach any longer. And all the effect on the future generation is going to come to an end. I need a bracha. Okay? Rebbe Lapian heard it well. He went to Kever Rochel and he prayed for Chaim Shmulevitz. And how long he stayed there, I don't know, but he prayed for him. And Reb Chaim Shmulevitz had an appointment with the doctor, with the oncologist next week, goes to Shari Tzedek, or Hadassah, whichever hospital it was. They take the last scans or whatever it is. There's not a trace of the cancer. Not a trace. Not at all. Miraculously, it disappeared. The doctor couldn't understand what happened. Here he had the imaging and all the tests clear. Without radical surgery, he's not going to survive. The only way to go is cutting out his larynx. And all of a sudden it disappears. How does it happen? Listen to the godless. So Reb Eli Lepian passed away. Nobody knew the story. When Reb Chaim Shmulevitz eulogized Reb Eli Lepian at his funeral, it's the first time he revealed the story. They knew Reb Eli Lepian was a great tzaddik. He was this, he was that. When Reb Chaim Shmulevitz shared his personal story, the people who heard it were amazed. This is not just a bracha, you're impoverished, you have a financial problem, it gets better. You have this, it's within the realm of recovery. Here, there's no way to recover. You need a miracle to recover. And because Reb Eli Lepian was who he was and gave him the bracha and was mispalel and prayed for him, he had a full recovery. This is literally Ani Hashem. This is overriding nature. This is transcending nature. Kel Shakai is miracles within nature. There's a statistic. Most people don't survive. Some people do survive. That's Kel Shakai. Ani Hashem means it's irrelevant what the natural order is. This trumps the natural order. And he had that window of understanding of how to trump it. Because Moshe Rabbeinu was connected at a level that he was able to bring about the 10 plagues. That's Yud Kei Vav Kei. That's Ani Hashem. Ani Hashem means that's Hoya Hovir. God is infinite. Infinite means there's no finite. Kel Shakai is his power is limited. Shekochu Dai. The world is finite. It's finite because it's Shakai. As the Midrash says that when God said there should be light, it should have gone unceasing. Hashem says up to this point. The ocean comes in with a level of ferocity, and when it hits the shore, it breaks. At the shoreline, the ocean breaks. When it comes in, it should inundate the world. But Hashem says, no, the ocean, as powerful as it is, it comes to a certain point, it stops right there. Because God reigned in on it. That's controlled. That's Shakai. Yud Kei Vav Kei is Hoya Hoviyeh. Unlimited. Anything unlimited, it's not bound by nature. The laws of nature have no relevance to that. Moshe Rabbeinu had a window of understanding of what that meant, and therefore he was able to bring about the miracles, which were revealed miracles, which nature meant nothing, and therefore he was able to bring that about.
And I guess the point is he was able to convey this and teach this?
No, he didn't teach it. Didn't teach it. He was privy to it. Nobody else understood that. He was the only one who knew what Ani Hashem means.
But he conveys this to the Jewish people.
He conveys it to the people. What's going to be because of what you've gone through? Now I'm able to bring about, to facilitate the 4 expressions of redemption.
So sit back and watch because it's coming in a way that.
Because Yud Kei Vav Kei is that's Midas HaRachmin. Midas HaRachmin means that despite the reality that there's no way to escape, to fight your way out of that paper bag, but because Hashem has Midas HaRachmin, which is Ni Hashem, therefore we're going to bring that about. And it'll be facilitated through the 4 expressions of redemption.
If you want to stop recording, so again, I don't.
According to what the Rav was saying, does that mean that on a national level and on an individual level, do we have to go through such sorrow in order to see the manifestations of Ani Hashem?
Now, the Gemara tells us in Sukkah, we find that when Yitzchak prayed to have a child because his wife was barren, Rivka Yimenu, it uses the term Vayetar. Yetar means he prayed. So the Medrash tells us the 10 expressions of Tefillah, one of them is Yetar. What's yetar? Yetar in Hebrew or Hebrew means a pitchfork. What does a farmer use a pitchfork for? He takes what's below and he turns it over. It's an expression of tefillah which is so powerful. It's mahapech. Listen to the words: midas arzorius lemidas arachmim. It overturns the attribute of cruelty to the attribute of mercy. That's the Gemara. As the pitchfork turns from what's on the bottom, turns it over, this powerful expression overturns the attribute of cruelty to the attribute of mercy. Chas v'shalom. There's no attribute of cruelty. So what does it mean? Why is it referred to as the attribute of cruelty? Because we, with our limited understanding, when Klal Yisrael experiences midas adin, we see this as the ultimate level of cruelty because we don't understand that that's the only way to go, that we're able to bring about the end result, because that's atonement. Because if you would understand exactly why this is the only approach, you see this as rachmim. This is really rachmim. But because we have a limited understanding of the various systems, we see this as achzorius. And therefore it overturns it. It allows what's seen as cruelty, which is the midas adin, and it turns it into midas arachmim. That's what it is. So the withdrawing of the straw subsidy, all this is midas adin. Because you got to pay off. We said we accelerated the bondage because you have to leave sooner. To allow the four expressions of Geula for that to begin, to launch that dynamic. That's Adi Hashem. I'll give you an example. Many years ago, a certain person says to me, I have a very good friend. He grew up with him. He's not observant, but he's a very good person and he's a good Jew. And he and his wife, they have a young child, and he came down with a very rare case of leukemia. And he's in slow kettering, and he's under treatment. And it's a new treatment which just came about, and that's the only hope this child is going to survive. Okay? They would want to understand why they're good people. Why did God bring this to them? Could they come discuss it with you? I said, definitely, let them come speak to me. And the husband and wife came to me and were speaking, and they asked me the question. The boy's 4 years old. He's under treatment today. This boy is married already. Thank God he's healthy. And they said to me, so I said, there are many things in life we don't understand. But we have a track record with God. Track record. We've been in the valleys, we've had our peaks with him. But ultimately, if everything's said and done, we're always coming out on top. So there are many things we don't understand. All those who oppressed us, they're no longer here. And we're still here. And we're thriving. We not only survived, we actually were very resilient and we bounced back. But many things we don't understand. We have no understanding why your child and you were chosen to undergo this. But if you have trust, which is faith in God, he's proven himself that ultimately whatever he does, there's a reason, although we don't know the reason, because he doesn't share the reason. So the wife says to me, thank God, slow kettering, they have this new medication that our child is able to have a chance to have recovery. So I said to the wife, could you imagine your son has experienced this rare type of leukemia, and you say to me about that, thank God, God allowed this medication just to become, and it's experimental, and at least it gives our son a chance. You're saying, thank God. Meaning, you wish, of course, your son wouldn't have been subject to this cancer, but now he has it. You say, Baruch Hashem, God provided the solution. And ultimately it worked. You understand? As dark as that cave may be, when you see the light at the end of the tunnel, all of a sudden you're experiencing differently. There's hope. And thank God there's hope. and you see it. But why did it have to happen? We don't have all the answers. So sometimes the pain is only there to facilitate, to allow the light to shine at the end. You can't appreciate the light unless you see the darkness. That's the way it is. And we have no understanding why there was darkness and why there's pain. But the reality is because we have debt to pay. The pain is to pay the debt. That's what we call kapora. That's atonement. We had to be there so many years. It had to be accelerated, it had to be intensified. But ultimately, once we reach that point, now we're out of the gate. And that's the Daled Neshani Geula. When there's a portion called Beshalach, Vayibeshalach Paro Sa'om, and when Paro sent out the people, God did not take us along the Philistine highway because it was close. So there the Midrash says, what's Vayehi Beshalach? Vaisha Shalach. Hashem says, woe to me that I had to send the Jews out when I did. If I would have kept them there longer, I would have been able to bring about greater levels of miracle, more plagues. Moshel Me'adavadome, what is it in Halus 2? A person goes and kidnaps the prince and tortures the prince. The king sends out people to search for that culprit, for the one who tortured the prince. They capture him, and he says to the person who's going to ultimately execute him, I want you to whip him, that he should understand and suffer at this most extreme level. And he whips him and he says, I want you to give him 100 lashes. And he dies after 10 lashes. So the king says, woe to me that he didn't survive to the end because I wanted him to suffer that level of pain. He expired too soon. I couldn't give him what he deserved, all the pain that he deserved. Because he died sooner, before the number 100 came about. Hashem says, if the Jews could have been there a little bit longer, I would have brought more plagues upon the Egyptians. But because if we would have been there a moment longer, we would have gone into the oblivion because we were at the Memte Shari Tuma with the 49 levels of impurity. We had to leave at that moment. Although he could have brought more plagues, but if he would have, we would have never left Egypt. So Hashem says, woe to me, vai in Hebrew means woe to me, that I had to send them out that moment, because if they would have stayed longer, I would have brought more plagues. So the Beis HaLevi, in his commentary, asks what Hashem just wants to torture the Egyptians. He just wants to say, woe to me that I couldn't give him greater level of pain. So he explains that the Mako, the plagues, are two-edged. And in one context, it's punishment for the Egyptians. On the other hand, when the Klal Yisrael saw the revealed miracle, the Jews were idolaters in Egypt. Every time we experience or witness another miracle, and we saw its application, we were being expunged from the influences of the idolatry. At the very end, there was still a microscopic cell of that idolatry left with us. If he would have been able to bring more plagues, we would have been purged totally. And the Chet Egel would have never come about. Never. But because we had to leave at that moment, and we weren't exposed again to another level of revealed miracle, that's the reason why there was a slight blind spot, which ultimately led to the Chet Egel. When Moshe Rabbeinu was absent, we miscalculated the 40 days. Where did we revert back? We reverted back. We had a relapse. Of course, it was initiated and instigated by the Erev Rabbi, the rabble. But we only subject to that influence because we still had this microscopic cell of the past of that idolatry. So the plagues themselves were a revelation that the Jews saw the hand of Hashem, that ain't old milavado, there's nobody but God. And what they thought initially, it was really baseless. The deities are only the agents of God. They have no independent power, which is the basis for idolatry. They believe in deities. That's the understanding.